Okay, let's get into this. We're looking at sources talking about combining solar power and water saving in California, right?
That's the focus, yeah, given the drought issues and, the push for renewables there.
It feels like the core idea from the sources is, well, that our separate energy and water systems, they're missing a big opportunity.
Totally. By literally putting them together, like solar panels physically covering water sources, the potential seems much greater.
Right. So this deep dive, we're exploring that synergy, how we can tackle energy and water scarcity at the same time based on what your material lays out.
Exactly. We'll look at the basics, some real-world examples, and what might be next.
Okay, first thing that jumps out. How do solar panels even really work when it's raining? Don't they need, like, bright sunshine?
Well, yeah, you're right. Their power output definitely drops with heavy clouds or rain, maybe, down to 10 or 25%. But here's the interesting bit. The sources point out the cooling effect.
Cooling from rain.
Yeah, rain, just lower temperatures. See, panels lose efficiency when they get too hot. So that natural cooling can actually boost their relative output, maybe 5 to 15% compared to a really scorching day.
Ah, okay. So less sun input, but the panels themselves run a bit better because they're not overheating.
Precisely. And that cooling principle is actually key for some of these combined systems.
Like the canal projects. The sources mentioned one in Central California.
Exactly. Putting solar panels over irrigation canals, it's not just about the electricity. The water underneath provides evaporative cooling, helps keep the panels in that optimal temperature range.
And crucially, it covers the water,
Mm,
reducing evaporation.
dramatically. The sources suggest up to 90% reduction in water loss from evaporation in those covered sections.
90%, wow. That's saving water while making energy.
Yeah, the pilot project mentioned 8,500 feet of canal. They project saving 65 million gallons a year.
Good grief. That's water for thousands of homes, potentially,
Yeah.
and 13 gigawatt hours of power.
Right. And another benefit, shading the water helps cut down on algae growth. Oh. Which must be a headache for water districts.
Definitely a maintenance issue. So yeah, it's like a win-win-win.
Okay, but that's big infrastructure. Does this idea work, closer to home in cities?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Think about urban rainwater harvesting. It's already happening, right? With things like the Rainwater Capture Act in California, buildings are starting to use gray water recycling too, like the Salesforce Tower in SF using it for toilets.
Okay, so where does solar fit in there?
Well, you pair rooftop solar with these water systems. Use the solar power generated right there to pump and treat the collected rainwater or gray water. Reduces the need to pull power from the grid for those water systems. Imagine your building collecting free water, using free sun energy to manage it.
It becomes sort of a closed loop locally. Are there newer technologies pushing this integration further?
Yeah, the sources mention some really interesting stuff. Hydro panels, for example.
Micropanels.
Companies like Source are testing them in California. They use solar thermal energy, not just for electricity, but to actually pull water moisture directly out of the air. Water from the air using solar. Okay, how does that work?
They use special materials, hygroscopic ones that absorb air moisture easily. Then solar heat releases that moisture as vapor, which they condense into clean water.
Wow.
It's small scale now and kind of expensive for the amount of water you get, but imagine them helping out in dry areas or remote places. The sources also touch on hybrid PV thermal systems making electricity and hot water together. Good for preheating water when it's cooler and rainy.
This all sounds really promising, integrated design thinking. But there have got to be hurdles, right? Big ones.
Oh, definitely. The sources are clear about the challenges. Cost is a big one up front. Those canal covers, maybe 20–30% more expensive initially because of the special structures needed. And maintenance over water is trickier.
And those hydro panels sound costly too.
Very currently, per gallon, yeah.
And I imagine getting different agencies' water, energy to cooperate isn't always smooth sailing.
That's a huge point in the sources. Regulatory fragmentation. These agencies often work in silos, different rules, different priorities. It can make permitting for these integrated projects really complex and slow. Even city-level systems run into tricky plumbing codes sometimes.
What about other impacts? Environmental or just how people feel about it?
Good question. Shading canals might change the local water ecosystem, for instance. And aesthetics come up. Some communities might not want miles of canals covered in panels or lots of panels on urban buildings. Public perception matters.
So despite all that, what's the path forward according to the sources? How do we scale this up?
Well, the potential payoff is huge, covering all 4,000 miles of California's canals. The estimate is saving 63 billion gallons of water a year.
billion. Wow.
enough for 2 million households, plus 13 gigawatts of power. So the recommendations include things like creating task forces across
To
agencies.
break down those silos you mentioned.
Exactly. And using financial tools like tax incentives to make the upfront costs more manageable.
And for the urban side, rainwater and solar hybrids.
Incentivizing those, yeah. Maybe making them standard for new commercial buildings or offering rebates for homeowners. Plus, more research and development is needed. Things like better panel coatings for rain, using AI for maintenance, maybe community hydro panel networks.
This whole deep dive really highlights how rethinking infrastructure, connecting these dots between energy and water, can offer some powerful answers.
Yeah, turning static pipes and panels into these dynamic, multitasking
The
systems.
challenges are real cost, rules, coordination.
Hmm,
But the pilots show it's feasible. It's actually starting to happen.
it's not just theory anymore.
So the final thought for you listening. How could integrating systems like this energy and water change how we manage resources elsewhere? What other connections, what potential synergies might we be missing just by keeping things separate?